questions right now from around the world. People are messaging me, Instagram, Twitter, hashtag Bob Lazar. If you do that right now in the audience, I'm going to ask a few questions from Twitter. I want to flip the script here for a second, because George is always the one interviewing everybody. So I want to take a second to interview George on something. For almost 30 years now, George's been standing up and saying, hey, I believe Bob's story. But he's never really told everybody some of the things why. So 30 years ago, and to this day, you believe Bob's story. Can you just tell me a couple reasons what you did at the beginning for Bob to earn your trust?
First of all, did you notice I had brown hair back then? I think the fact that it's turned white is a lot to do with Bob Lazar. I don't know. Might be my wife Anna has something to do with that too. Our hope for the film, what Jeremy set out to do was sort of to let the world know a little bit about Bob, because once you get to know him, the improbable premise becomes more probable. And I was never able to do that in our stories. We were always arguing about what school he went to and what he did at Los Alamos and what has happened since then, and all the picky little crap that ufologists and the debunkers want to deal with. And I never got to really tell about Bob, other than his crazy, interesting interests, his jet car and blowing stuff up. It's what won me over, I think back then, is just getting to know what kind of a guy he was, and that, in ufology, and I think most of the people who are here who are familiar with that field, you know what it's like for the phonies, the people who come up with these crazy stories. They always have to keep adding to it to keep themselves in the limelight, So one day they saw a flying saucer, the next day they got to say they were abducted, the next day they had sex with female aliens, the next day they got a wife on Mars, the next day they're time traveling to Mars, and they always have to keep adding stuff up. Bob wasn't like that. He told the same story to Jeremy in this film that he told me 29 years ago. And I think that had a lot to do with him having credibility for me. If he, the stuff that I would ask, if there were things that I would ask that he didn't know, he wouldn't speculate. He didn't jump to any conclusions. He just stuck with the stuff he knew or had personal experience with. And it impressed me that he didn't necessarily believe it himself. I mean, he was skeptical about the things that he read, the reports. He couldn't quite figure out why he was allowed to see this stuff. We have entertained the idea that maybe they had an idea in mind that he might leak it, that it was a false flag, or run it up the flagpole and see how the public reacts and then pull the rug out from under it. Maybe. He doesn't rule that stuff out. But as Jeremy pointed out in the film, the people who know Bob the best, who are closest to him, know that he's not a liar, he doesn't make stuff up. And the story has been really consistent. And then the other part that's really hard to explain, I don't mean to dominate the whole conversation here up to it, but that we had a hard time conveying was all the weird stuff that happened to, mostly to Bob, but also to others of us in his circle in those days. While we were trying to work on verifying the story and building the case, a lot of really strange and unpleasant things happened. You heard the story that he told about his tire being shot out as a warning, but there were all kinds of other really weird things. Break-ins at his house where they just move things around, break things on the board, break-ins to his car, just gamesmanship to let them know that they were around. And then for me, as I'm interviewing people who had experiences out there, 24 different people who had worked at Area 51 or Groom Lake over the years, people who agreed by phone to give me information, one after another were visited by agents who told them to keep their mouths shut. Shut up. 6 people right in a row. Today we take it for granted that our phones are tapped, that it all goes into some gigantic database in Utah monitored by the NSA. Back then, I took umbrage at it when I realized that somebody was listening to my phone, but it happened again and again. People who offered to give me information that would buttress the story that was told by Bob were visited by agents who told them to shut up or else. One of those ladies worked for the Clark County court system, And these two guys came to her. She'd been a secretary and had a stenographer in these meetings with a defense contractor at which they discussed crashed saucers. And they came to her and said, look, you're still under your security oath. We know that you travel back and forth to Los Angeles to see your daughter and that she comes here. It's a big desert out there. It'd be a shame if something bad happened. And she was scared to death. And 10 years later, I went back to her thinking maybe she'll talk to me now. She won't, she wouldn't. So those things were real. The things that happened to Bob were real. The things that happened to all of us in that circle were real. Somebody was really messing with him, threatening him, and it's because his story was true. And I don't know if you figured out the mystery of what was in the beginning of Jeremy's film with the phones. That was a raid. That happened, that wasn't 30 years ago, that was a year ago. Anyway.
I wanted to show that for the first time. Yeah, George. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys that, you know, for the first time. That was real. That did happen. I experienced it, and that was shocking because I didn't set out in the movie that something like that was going to happen. So I kind of am starting to understand a little bit. You can think whatever you want. That happened. So really, Bob, George and I are sitting here, and the thing is, you've never needed a defender. You've never needed somebody to talk for you. And people have said that. And the thing is, you've never needed it. You just didn't think it was worth your while. But you have a receptive audience here of people that, whether they believe you or not, they're willing to hear your story. And I think this is a different era and a new time. And I feel that now from you. So I'm going to shut the fuck up and let Bob talk a little bit, but I do have some specific questions. But from all this experience and me dragging you into this world premiere, and do you have anything you want to say before I start asking you questions?
No, just go for the questions.
All right, I got one from my buddy Dan. In a clip from, and this is my fault as a filmmaker, I didn't clarify, you can't clarify everything. Dan, in a clip from Modern Day, he says he never saw an alien. But in the clip from 1989, he references seeing cadavers. That was both the clips were in my movie. Can he explain?
Yeah, that was in the briefings. There was we were given 2 or 3 page briefings of all the other projects going on, and everything was compartmentalized. So we had, you know, we dealt with power and propulsion, and there was another group that dealt with metallurgy. There was another group that dealt with any biological entities that, and anyway, we just had little briefings between the groups, so we kind of knew if there were any connections, and that was part of the biological entity briefing. So they had a vivisection drawing of a creature. No, it wasn't a drawing, it was an actual photograph. And it was, the only thing it showed was there was a single organ in its body, as if the heart, lungs, liver, everything had grown together into a single organ. And they had cut that apart and were looking at the different chambers inside. And that's pretty much literally that all I got to see from that, but that was kind of fascinating in itself.
And I mean, you know, that's wild. I think people just kind of take that for granted. You're saying, and oh, everybody slip up on words. Oh, you said drawing first. Bob drew me a picture of the, you know, the alien cadaver thing. Or right. So that's another thing I noticed. You know, you get on the air, even with George, who you've been friends for so long. Bob is so like worried that you're gonna, when he's talking, if he says the wrong word, just listen for what he says. You know, don't just try to pick apart the words. I think that's so important. And I feel like it's a new kind of day, but George, I know you also kind of hate having the camera on you, and you love that scene I did where you're in your house and there's awards behind you. You hated that thing. But
I'll never do that again.
Yeah, I am forever banned as being a filmmaker with you guys. By the way, did anybody like the movie?
Yes.
They're so random, I don't even know where to start. They're, you know, well, one of my friends actually asked me, does Bob Lazar smell like science experiments? Anyway, do you believe undercover agents are in the room at this very moment? And if so, what would you like to say to them? So, is it true also, George, that one of the people tasked with following you during that time period actually admitted and proved to you that they were the ones following you?
That is true. There were one of the places we used to hang out was a watering hole called the Smuggle Inn. And we would meet there with to sort of strategize and figure out where to go next. And there were a couple of other people in that small group. And when the guy who was one of the ones who had followed us around, he met me there, this is years later, and told me that it had been his job to follow us there, and he got to like the bar, so years later he was still going back.
That's great. So they're coming in fast and furious, you guys, on all forms of my phone. I see one right here. Erica, you wanted to know, question for Bob, how close to duplicating the alien propulsion system did you achieve?
Oh, we didn't. That's just about it. I mean, we couldn't even duplicate the material that, I mean, even the casing material, we didn't really even understand what was going on. It's one of those things where we can see what's happening and be proficient at using it. But there wasn't a single thing we could duplicate at all. At least at the time when I was there. I have no idea where they are at this point.
Okay, what breakthrough, I can't really understand it, but it's my eyes. What breakthroughs did you come to with any of the research that you did there? Were there any breakthroughs? Did you experience any breakthroughs? I'm going to expand the question. Did you have any breakthroughs when you were working at S4 on alien spacecraft, Bob? Did you have breakthroughs?
Well, anytime you were able to decipher something, it was a breakthrough. I mean, when we determined the fuel was a super heavy element, that was a breakthrough. When we finally figured out how the reactor and the amplifier worked together, that was a breakthrough. When we finally figured out how to shut the reactor off, that was a breakthrough. But I mean, every single thing was amazing to us. It's like, you know, having a couple little children playing with advanced materials. It's just all, you know, it's pretty much all luck.
I guess, you know, I'm going to put this down for a second. Some of the things I know that you probably want to know because it was news to me, and talking with George all these years and talking with Bob as well. Bob would say things and it would kind of hit me like, I didn't know that. If I've been researching this and I don't know it, I'm sure you don't. You said something to me recently. You said, look, I don't know for sure, 100%, that the physics I described and how it was is the way it worked. It was like magic. I was telling you to the best of my ability to what I think we got to. So
right.
But people don't know that. So basically what I want you to explain to them, like you explained to me, is you're kind of giving it your best shot of how you think it worked, but you're not positive about it.
No, there's no way to verify it 100%. You know, in the situation we were in, we just really were able to observe and then come up with pretty much an educated guess as far as what's going on. But that's the best we could do at that time.
Our friend Mark says, how fast does the super heavy element decay? Like, you know, how fast does element 115, I guess, decay?
Well, the 115 we have, the isotope we had, the isotope that powered the craft does not decay. That's a stable element. The element 115 that we synthesized recently, whether it was a few years ago, that does decay very quickly. And any element can have a whole host of isotopes. And those isotopes can have various half-lives or be stable. So the isotope of the 115 that's used in the craft is stable and does not decay.
A funny little story, you know, when gravity was admitted that it was a wave for sure, I call Bob, I'm like, Bob, vindication, man, they said gravity is a wave. And he goes, yeah, well, you know, I had a 50-50 chance if you think about it, Jeremy. And I was like, okay. And then additionally, you know, I was like, Bob, you know, they fabricated some atoms of element 115, and it's so cool. It's so hard to impress Bob Lazar about UFOs. It drives me freaking crazy. I just had to say that. I don't know, man. I just hope that you guys, through the movie, that you get a chance a little bit to get to know Bob. And he's not happy being up here. Like, he's doing me a favor. And it's not because he doesn't want to answer your questions. He tried a Twitter account for like a few months. I don't know, it's just you're kind of done, or I don't know. You talk for yourself, man.
Yeah, that helps.
You're uncomfortable, admit it.
Yeah, no, I have social anxiety, so this is like, this is horrific to me.
There will be a Bob.
Bob, you are courageous. Courageous.
Hey guys, give Bob Lazar a hand. Where are all the haters that told me I was a shitty filmmaker? Now, where are you not cheering in here? Right here. Okay, I'll find you, tough guy. Oh, again, I know I'm number one. So, I don't know, it's a different day maybe with Bob, and I mean, again, you know, Bob's never been one, he's not a shrinking violet. You know, Bob can defend himself. He's a jet car guy, the brothel guy, the shotgun guy. You know, he's lived a crazy, he's lived a wild life, but I don't know, I guess, Bob, out of everything that you did, whether people decide to believe your story or not believe your story, a lot of times that's because they either don't have the information or they do. But whatever, whether they believe it or not, is there a message to, you can't see anything here, but I mean, you know, 800 and something people down here, 800 and something people, we got sold out house right now. I mean, everybody said it was going to happen, so for all these people that came here to see you, and I know you traveled from other countries, from around the world, every country in the world, it's unbelievable to me the messages I'm getting. Thank you for supporting my work. Thank you for supporting George, who was holding the microphone, trying for 25 years against all odds, and Bob himself. But is there anything, Bob, that you want to tell this audience right now, just what's important about your story, whether they believe it or not? What do you want them to take away when they leave this auditorium?
Really?
I always say, what's the most important? Yeah, really, go ahead. Bob, deal with it.
No, I understand it's an incredible story, and I myself would have a really tough time believing it, as I said in the film. But the events that were portrayed occurred just like they were shown. And, you know, quite frankly, I prefer people don't believe it, because then I don't get asked questions and don't get bothered at all. But, you know, for those of you that can see through that, all I want to tell you is that that's really the way things happened, and that's pretty much it.
Sport model. Okay, I'm going to take one yellular question like that. No more. No more. Zero more. Shut your mouth and be out. Zero more. No yellular. You're about to be kicked out by me personally. No more out loud question. I think it's really interesting. I had a guy, he's an aviation writer, and he has a very sophisticated, you know, website about all this, and he said, one of the things that's killing me is I don't know how Lazar came up with the sport model, because it is, from an aviation standpoint, it is so perfect. The system he described, it's genius. And I was on the phone with him, I'm like, well, maybe he didn't make it up. Right? So tell us a little bit about the sport model before we jump off stage here. Just tell us a little bit about what was most impressive to you about the sport model, about the science of it, about what you got to see inside of it. What did it feel like to walk inside a flying saucer?
It was really more ominous than interesting at the time. And everything is exactly one color. It's all a dark pewter gray. There is no sharp angle anywhere. Everything has a radius of curvature to it, as if somebody built this thing out of wax and then let it melt a little bit and then let it cool off. It's a very unusual, I mean, it feels unusual just to be in there, but even the most simple things inside are, and pardon the pun, are completely alien. The little doors that snap open are made of little hexagons. I mean, it's hard to go through everything that pops into my mind right now, but it's difficult really to say. But there's nothing that, it's like going into a room where nothing looks familiar at all, not even the room itself. So it was really something I'll never forget.
Small furniture, too.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point too. But even that's unfamiliar. Why would you have something, you know, a seat that's half its normal size? So it was really It's a shocking thing.
Well, I just want to say, thanks for including me, guys, because this has been a ride. I mean, earning George's trust and him telling me, you're never going to get Bob on camera. Go ahead, good luck, kid. That was awesome. Thanks for the encouragement. But thanks, Bob. Just so it's very clear, Bob did not ask me to make a movie. He's getting 0 from this movie. He actually gave to a science charity the last time we did a screening. The things you think are just fucking wrong, and go ahead and take that angle if you want, or you can hear the story, and you can, with your rational mind, with your skeptical mind, but with at least a part of your mind open to hear the story, you can hear it. And I'm not, even as a journalist, at some point you got to take a stand, right? I don't know, what's the ethics of journalism? I got to take a stand.
Your friend Dave Navarro was here.
He was.
He calls himself a hopeful skeptic.
Okay.
He hopes that this is true. He wants to believe, like the poster from the X-Files. But he still uses his mind. Skepticism is a healthy thing in this kind of a field. You don't have to just buy it. You're skeptical of your own story in some ways, and some of the things that you saw.
Understandably so, yeah.
You should be. But it doesn't mean having a closed mind.
There's going to be a storm of information that comes out over the next probably 6 months. What you saw is a glimpse. It's just a glimpse into Bob's life. It's a glimpse into the work that George Knapp has tirelessly done for 30 years into this story. Slowly, I'm going to be releasing clips and little pieces and just, let's get the information out there. You saw the bulk of it, but the conversation has started now. If you liked the movie, if you thought it was good, tell people. That is the whole thing. Let people know, because that's how we spread the movie and that's how we spread the information. So thank you. That's what I got to say. What final words? Final words.
Well, we live in interesting times. I mean, back when this started in 1989, Bob was kind of an outlier. It was telling a story that a lot of the world wasn't ready to hear. In the last 12 months, things have changed dramatically. That New York Times story in December of last year, the TTSA, Lou Elizondo coming forward, those videos released by the Pentagon, suddenly people in my line of work are doing UFO stories, and they're taking it seriously, and they don't start off with funny jokes and put downs, and maybe the page has turned. Maybe we really are in a new era, and that an era when Bob's story can be viewed in a much more positive way without all the nitpicky bullshit.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot to say other than I know a lot of people came from great distances to be here, and I really do appreciate that. I appreciate all the support that I've gotten, and really, thank you. Thank you. And really, thanks for coming out here and watching Jeremy's movie. It was fun.
Appreciate your work, man. Appreciate your work.
Lazar, we appreciate everything you exposed.
Everything.
The fact that they actually talked about it, and Bob was willing to talk about element 115, and then his house got raided after that conversation. That kind of blew me away. I loved it. Jeremy's working extremely hard. Couldn't be happy for him. More happy for him and Bob and everyone involved.
The 115, element 115, I have questions, a lot of questions.
Started in the desert, just north of Las Vegas.
A local scientist who's worked at Groom Lake
said to be where top-secret weapons systems have been tested over the years.
He has asked that his identity be shielded.
Exactly what's going on up there?
What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. Physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence.
What would happen to you if the government learned that you were giving us this information?
He just wanted to stay alive.
Maybe this has been kept from us for a good reason.
Sir, how do we know you are who you say you are?
My name's Bob Lazar. I'm known for working at a classified base and reverse engineered alien spacecraft.
It went all over the world. He put Area 51 on the map.
Can we ever be made whole if we're not believed?
We can't verify what was going on in his background.
I have no motivation to lie. The science and the technology can change us.
We've always looked to the skies for answers instead of looking into ourselves.